Hi there BookTube, it's Eleanor here, and today I'm going to talk about 3 books that I've read this weekend. It's very unlike me to have read 3 books in a weekend, but as you know I've been having to sit still a bit recently, and so I have been trying to sort of pick up what I fancied. And I think I've discussed this on my channel before, but as soon as I set my TBR for the month, there comes a point where I look at that stack of books, maybe I've picked 12 for my sort of January TBR, and I think, oh, I just don't want to read those ones right now. And before I would have maybe slogged myself through, but this year for me in reading is going to be a year of just allowing myself to sort of browse my shelf, shop my shelf, and I think that's going to help me stay more interested in the books that I own rather than buying new ones. And so I said to myself on Friday night, my husband was going out, I had the house to myself once Matilda was asleep, and I really wanted to do some reading, and I felt the need to read a book in an evening. I just wanted that joy of sitting down, reading, finishing that book and just feeling like I'd accomplished something in that evening. I don't get that feeling all that often, and generally when I do that, it's YA contemporary that I want to go for, because they're the sort of books that you can really indulge in and finish in an evening. Other books take more time, are longer, need a bit more time to digest and think about. So my hand really went to the YA contemporary part of my shelves, and I started going through and looking, and there were so many books that I remembered that I'd bought, but I'd forgotten they were there, and I really had a good time having a look through. And I picked up about a stack of 8 or 9, and then I went downstairs and I sat and I picked one from the pack and started reading. And I think throughout this process I might have DNF'd and got rid of quite a few quite quickly. I mean, to the point of where I'd read maybe 10 pages and I was like, no, I don't like this. And so it was quite good because I got rid of some really old books through that as well. But in the end I ended up reading 3 books, one on Friday, one on Friday, one on Saturday and one on Sunday. That's right, so 3 books. And I want to talk to you about them because they were quite different. They were all YA contemporaries, but they were all different in author and theme and star rating, actually. The first one I ended up reading was Irresistible by Liz Banks. I had 2 of her books on my shelf. I was a little bit drawn to it because it was only 200 pages long, so I thought, well, that's doable for an evening. And I thought that the premise of this sounded interesting. It's set in the UK, it's about a girl called Mia. She needs a holiday job, and so she manages to get a job at this sort of local country club. It's a bit like a stately home where you can, it's a hotel come country club, and she gets a job in the restaurant for the summer. And so she starts working there, and immediately, even at the point of her interview for the job, she becomes aware of the hotel country club's owner's son, who has a reputation, and she sees him playing the part of bad boy, and he is vile. He's not a nice person. He's obviously privileged, and with that he has become mean, and he spends his day making fun of people and making people feel bad and playing tricks on people. For an example, he gets a girl to take her clothes off so he can take photos of her, and he says they will be tasteful, arty shots for her fiance. She's just got engaged, and then the fiance turns to pick the girl up from work, and he shows them and makes it into something it's not, and tries to cause rifts between people. He does it with guests of the hotel. He's generally just not a very nice person. Also working with Mia is a boy called Dan, who is really kind and nice and down to earth, and she has an instant connection with him and an instant like of him. Mia's had some problems with boys previously, a particular boy really, and so that plays a part in this as well. So she's instantly drawn to both of these boys for 2 very different reasons. And I think this bad boy trope has to be done very carefully. I feel like if you're going to do that trope, there has to be a sense of this person can be redeemed, or this person can be someone that that they could have a meaningful relationship with. And what I mean by that is that the things that we're being shown previous to any sort of redemption are things that you could forgive if they stopped doing. And I just felt like the things that he did in this were you know, I just couldn't understand how he could come back from it. I was a bit disappointed both in Mia. I didn't like this male lead. Normally these bad boys have got something there you can hook onto, something you can sort of root for. You want them to sort of sort themselves out and get out of this phase or whatever, but I just didn't want him to. I didn't want him to. I didn't want him to get the girl. I didn't want him to, I couldn't believe that I wanted that relationship. And so I was quite disappointed with this one, and I ended up giving it 2 stars. The next book I picked up was My Life with the Water Boys by Ali Novak. I've had this a while. I think I saw it on someone's channel and it just sounded intriguing. The tagline here says 1 girl, 12 boys, 1 roof. And what that means is our main protagonist Jackie has, at the beginning of the book, it's not a spoiler to say, her whole family, her mum, her dad and her older sister by a year, have died in a car accident, and she is orphaned suddenly, and she is then moved from her home in New York. Her mother was a fashion designer, her father a businessman. They were extremely well off, and she is moved to go and live with her godmother, who she's very sporadically met throughout her life, not really met her that much, doesn't know much about her. She goes to live with her and her 12 boys. 12 boys, I know. There is quite a few sets of twins. There is also 2 other children she's adopted that were cousins, I believe, that she's taken in. And so there is, well, there's 11 boys and 1 girl, but one of the girls is a bit of a tomboy, so it's almost like 12 boys, and they sort of play on that within the book. But she goes to live with them, and this follows that, what's going on with her, going to a new school, making new friends. She moves from New York to Colorado, and this family live on a big ranch, and it's about a relationship she forms with the family and the different boys. All the boys are very different and have different personalities. She's instantly drawn to a couple of them, but they're a bit resentful of her being there, as well as her not feeling like she wants to be there either. And so it's an interesting dynamic. I really enjoyed how they looked at that dynamic, and how they looked at her making friends, and how she sort of adapted to this life. What I wasn't so keen on with this was the relationship she forms with a couple of the boys, and there's this sort of boy rivalry. I really didn't like. I didn't like that feeling of it. It didn't feel right. I also felt like maybe there was just too many people in this, too many boys. I know that there's trying to be a statement to be made about this big house, and she's moved to this big house with loads of children, but I feel like maybe 2 children less and just being 10 other children in the house would have been easier. It would have made more sense. There was just too many to keep track of and to really get a feel for. So I feel like had we narrowed that down slightly, it would have still had that feeling of a massive family and this big family feel and this mass load of like testosterone, but I feel like we had just 2 or 3 too many children, which meant that we sort of couldn't really get to know some of them as well as I would have liked. However, it did have quite a nice resolution. I had the feels in places, which is always what you're hoping for in one of these gobbly books. So I would say it was just sort of, yes, I quite liked it. It was a good read, so I gave this one 3 stars. And then the final one that I picked up was by Holly Bourne, and it was It Only Happens in the Movies. I've had previous experience with Holly Bourne's books and really enjoyed them, so I knew her writing style going into this, and I thought I was going to like it. I liked the idea that there was this sort of film focus, and I went in with like a really open mind. The story is about Audrey. She is in 6th form, so she is sort of 6th 16, 17. She's just started working in a local independent cinema to get some money and really to get out of the house. Her parents have gone through an ugly divorce where her father has cheated. Her brother's away at university. Her mother's not been coping. She drinks too much, and she is quite manic at times. And so she uses this as a bit of an escape from home. She's had a terrible experience with a boy the year before, as you do. There's always a bad experience. And she is currently writing a piece of coursework for media studies where they have to take a look at something in the media and sort of and do some analysis. And so she's decided to look at romance films and whether they sort of are unhelpful to real life relationships. And so throughout this, in different chapters, we get this sort of title. So for this particular one that I've just flicked to, it says The Kiss. And then it tells you, so I'll read you this bit because I think you can get a good sense of her writing. Men in films regularly kiss women who don't want to be kissed, and those are supposed to be the good kisses. Either the woman is taken by surprise or storming off in a mood or having a huge go at them, or is engaged to somebody else or claims she's just plain not interested. And how do men in movies respond to this clear instruction of no? They grab the woman's face and kiss her anyway, roughly, using their masculine force. And rather than being slapped or even arrested, these movie men are rewarded for their, well, sexual violence. The women give in to the kiss after a brief moment of fighting it. You see, according to Hollywood, these women wanted to be kissed all along. It was just the male lead's job to break through the barriers like willful consent. Outside Hollywood movies, there is a term for being kissed against your will. This term isn't spontaneous or romantic or passionate. No, it's called sexual assault. It's a crime punishable in the UK by up to 10 years in prison. So you get things like that, these rants at the things that come up in romance films, these tropes, and I really loved that. I thought it was really good. There is also an element of this. She used to do a lot of drama. She's stopped doing drama, but she's an incredible actress. And she meets someone at this independent cinema who also works there, who wants to be a film director. And he's working on this zombie film. And she ends up getting embroiled in taking part in this film. So there's lots of little things going on here. My favourite things in this book were those snippets of this sort of media look into romance films. It really made me think about them, and there was a long list of romance films throughout here dropped in, which I really enjoyed, and some I will definitely be looking at myself. I really enjoyed her female friendships in this. There is a period of time where she has distanced herself from her female friends that she's been friends with for a long time, and she sought out friendships from less complicated people, and yet when she realises quite what she's doing, and her friends are still there for her, and I just thought they showed such a real tight bond and a really lovely set of friends. So I really enjoyed that in there. My biggest problem with this is I really hated our love interest. I really didn't like him. I thought he was unkind and unthoughtful, and he did drugs, and he was just not a nice person. And I didn't like that, and so I struggled to get on board with the romance that went into this and the romantic element of it. I struggled to go on board with that. However, at the end of this book, Audrey makes a choice, and this was going to get a 3 stars, because as much as I loved everything going through, I thought we were reaching a particular point in the ending, and we didn't. And I loved that. I loved the choice Holly Bourne made at the end of this book. That really pulled it back for me, and it pushed it up a whole star, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. I really recommend this. It was a real page turner. I couldn't put it down. I think Holly Bourne is a brilliant writer, and she really writes UK. I don't know if it's UK centric, but she really writes female young protagonists who live in the UK very well. Now I say live in the UK because I do feel like where you live can play a part in the type of person you are, and so I can relate to these people because I lived through some of the things they are, and I definitely think where you live and what country you live in can play a part in that. So whereas I may not be able to put myself necessarily in the shoes of someone from another country that's living another life, I mean, it doesn't mean I can't enjoy it. I really enjoy reading you know, books set in American high schools and things like that, but there's no basis of reference for me there, because they're very different in the way that they are. So I really enjoyed it for that as well. And the things that Audrey's going through with her family life and things, I just really enjoyed following along with that. And I thought she was just a really strong, feminist, exciting character to read about. So I give this a strong 4 stars. So yeah, it really worked well for me this weekend, just allowing myself to just shop my shelves and pick what I want. And I think I'm going to do that again now. In fact, I'm looking at my shelves and I think I'm going to go off now and do exactly the same, and hopefully I will come up with some brilliant ones that I want to gobble up again. So I'll come back to you soon and let you know what I've read. Bye for now, BookTube.